He's been around because he has.
Okay, thanks for coming tonight. The planning board's going to convene their meeting. Tonight we're going to be having a presentation by John Hume. Okay, my name is Tom Brocco. I'm the clerk. Ben Ritchie, who's the chairman, couldn't make it tonight because he's sick. The people here is Tom Robinson and Kendall Daly, other members of the planning board. Okay, the purpose of the meeting tonight is the Montechusett Regional Planning has written a new economic development plan for us for the master plan. It's one of the chapters of the master plan. And the purpose of tonight is for him to present that to the people of the town, all of you, so you get 5 people get to represent the town. And get any questions you have answered from John, and get any input that you want to give to the planning board about writing the new the economic development plan of the master plan. So that's the purpose of the meeting tonight. So I'm going to introduce John here. John Hume is the Planning Development Director of Montechusett Regional Planning. Has worked for MRPC for 16 years. John supervises MRPC planning department staff and works for a variety of planning-related technical assistance to towns throughout the Montechusett region. He's the project manager for the existing Federal Economic Administration grant activities, a development assistant communities. He's also a project manager for MRPC's Federal Environmental Protection Brownfield Program. John's very qualified. So we'll turn it over to John. He's written this plan. He's had a little bit of input from the planning board. The purpose of writing this grant and having MRPC do it is to have an outside company come in and look at it from a different perspective than someone else in town. So we've had a little bit of input, but not really. When you say John, he's the expert. So we're going to turn it over to John and let him tell us about it.
Stand on this side over here. Thank you. As Tom mentioned, my name is John Hume, Planning and Development Director with the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. We're based in Leominster at the Doyle Center, and we provide technical assistance to 22 towns and cities in the Montechusett region. The Montechusett region extends out towards Harvard and Groton on the east. To the west, our borders are Athol, Royalston, and Petersham, and to the south, Hubbardston, Templeton, and our boundaries extend right up to the New Hampshire border with Ashby and Ashburnham. And it also includes the cities, to the city of Fitchburg, city of Gardner, and the city of Leominster. So if we wanted to turn the slide here, the project that we helped out with, working with the planning board during the fall, it was funded under a program that we've got that's called District Local Technical Assistance. We've been getting funds from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts over the last 10 years to assist communities on various projects that involve either economic development, housing, or regionalization of services. So this study was done at no cost to the town of Hubbardston because the town of Hubbardston, Tom and the planning board put together a district local technical assistance application last spring that was funded by the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. And it's not actually a grant, it's technical assistance. Pays for my time to work on the project, and Karen Chapman's time also. Karen Chapman's here tonight. She's a principal planner with Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. So that's where the funding comes from. Right here, I just wanted to briefly go through what a master plan consists of. Some people might be new to the process. The town is updating the master plan. There's 9 elements in a master plan, and as you can see here, it includes economic development. Other elements in a master plan are housing, transportation, goals and policy statement, open space, natural resources, a land use plan, and an implementation plan. So it's quite an undertaking putting one of these chapters together. And MRPC is pleased that we get to work on the economic development element. So, some of the findings. I was just going to take about 10 minutes of your time, and then we can have questions, answers, some public input. But generally, it's divided up into two sections. The first section, which I'm just about to go over, is an inventory of the current economic base. And that includes things like your labor force, a lot of census information like median family income per capita income, unemployment rates. And it's just to give you a snapshot of where the town of Hubbardston stands at the moment. The second part of the chapter includes a goal, objectives, and recommendations based off of the information that we've gathered in the inventory section of the plan. So I can start off right here about talking about your labor force. The number of employed residents fluctuated slightly between the year 2005 and 2016. Within the town of Hubbardston, you've got about 2,498 persons employed. I just looked at 2017 information. That ticked up a little bit, so that number is slightly higher. Hubbardston's unemployment rate, which is no surprise right here, jumped up at the beginning of the Great Recession. It was 5.5% at 2008, 8.1% at 2009. It was the highest in the year 2010, which is no surprise. This is true for most of the communities in the region, in the state, but it was at its highest in 2010 at 8.3%. Now unemployment is very low, which is really nice. It's at about 3.3% in Hubbardston. That was for the year 2016, but this morning I just looked at the 2017 rates, still 3.3%. The state rate is a little bit higher than that. I think it was about 3.6% or 3.7%. But if you wanted to back up just a... Nope. That's okay. It's always been slightly less than that of the state since the Great Recession. So that's a positive thing. That's not true for all the communities that we serve throughout the Montezuma region. You're a little bit below that state level, so that was nice to say. Here we have per capita income as a measure of wealth. There's a couple of measures of wealth. Basically what that is equal to the total incomes generated by a population divided by the number of persons in that area. So that's what we were looking at. Massachusetts, the per capita income was higher. It was $36,441. Hubbardston was $32,857. But this is a trend in the Montezuma region too. I see this in other communities that I work in, like Athol, Lunenburg, the town of Air. It's a trend because I think that the Montezuma region is more family oriented. You get like a larger household, larger family household within the Montezuma region. So that could be a possible explanation for that. But Hubbardston's per capita income, we compared it to other communities, surrounding communities. It was lower than Ashburnham, Princeton, and Westminster, but it was higher than Barry, Oakham, Phillipston, and Templeton. So you're right in the middle of the pack with surrounding communities in terms of per capita income. The next, right here, would be household income and poverty. This is where you're doing better than the state average. Hubbardston's median household income of $81,757. It's less than Ashburnham, Princeton, and Westminster, but it's more than Barry, Oakham, Phillipston, Templeton. You're well above the state rate right there. The state is $68,563 per year. Also, same with the median family income. of $94,485. It's more than the state, once again. So that's positive. Positive thing there. Another positive side, there's less poverty in Hubbardston. The percentage of individuals living below poverty in Hubbardston is 5.8%. That's lower than Ashburnham, Princeton, and substantially lower than nearby Templeton, which is 10.4%. The state rate is about 11.6%, so you're well below that, which is nice. Okay, on to the next slide here. We have number and types of jobs in Hubbardston. Now, I wanted to point out, as we go through this, the number of businesses in Hubbardston. You're going to say, oh, that's low. There are many more businesses in Hubbardston than what's shown here by the state. That's where this information comes from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But for this data, employment wage data are derived from reports filed by all employers that are subject to unemployment compensation laws, both state and federal. So that's where these numbers come from. From 2010 to 2016, we have the number of establishments decreased very slightly during the 7-year period by 1. While total wages held steady, this is a good thing right here. The average weekly wage for Hubbardston increased by 20.8% during the period from 2010 and 2016. One thing that you have to realize, you have to take into account inflation. So we looked at the consumer price index for the nation, which increased by about 9%. So that shows that wages in Hubbardston did increase faster than inflation did, so about double, which is positive. As a result, consumers might have a little more disposable income to spend locally. So I thought that was a positive thing for the town of Hubbardston too. Okay. Number and types of jobs continued. The largest number of jobs is in healthcare and social assistance, 89 jobs in Hubbardston. It's followed by construction, 48 jobs, manufacturing, 44, professional and technical services, 19 jobs, and retail trade, which was 16 jobs. Once again, this information is from the state based on unemployment eligibility from businesses. Professional and technical service jobs had the highest average weekly wage, $810. Retail had the lowest at $423. Hubbardston has more establishments, total wages, average employment, and average weekly wage than Oakham and Phillipston, but it's got less than Westminster, Ashburnham, and of course Templeton. You can see that if you drive through Templeton. They have many more business establishments, so that was not a surprise there. Moving on to education, you can see up here under the first bullet, residents with a high school diploma but no higher education is the largest segment at 32.4% of the population 25 years old and older. It's higher than Ashburnham, Oakham, Princeton, and Westminster, but it's lower than Barry, Templeton, and Phillipston. It's significantly higher than the state, which was 25.4%. Second largest group, 24%, has some college education, followed by residents with a bachelor's degree. And if you compare this to the state, you've got higher numbers in the groups at both upper and lower echelon of educational attainment spectrum. So you have more people with high school education than you do compared to the state. But the state, if you took a look at those statistics, the state has a higher percentage of folks with a master's degree, for example, and that's not terribly surprising because it's a trend in the region too. If you factor in all the colleges and universities in the eastern part of the state, particularly in the Boston area, you can see why that would be a fact and why that's happening there too. So, economic sector contribution to the local tax base. Hubbardston homeowners accounted for about 93.43% of the total tax base. Business and industry, about 3.73%. The remainder, 2.84%, derived from taxes on personal property. Hubbardston's commercial sector raises a higher amount of tax dollars when compared to Oakham, Princeton, and Phillipston, but less than Ashburnham, Barry, Templeton, and Westminster. Hubbardston raises more tax dollars from industrial sector than the neighboring towns of Ashburnham, Oakham, Phillipston, and Princeton, but less than Barry and Templeton. So you can see that you kind of fall in the middle of the pack when you compare yourselves to your immediate neighbors, some of the smaller communities in the region. But one thing that I found was very interesting, which is on a positive note, is your average single-family tax bill. You can see right here, it's for fiscal year 2017. It was just $3,751 for the average single-family tax bill. Now, that's lower than about 70% of Massachusetts communities. Hubbardston was ranked 245 lowest out of 351 Massachusetts communities. So that's a nice thing. It seems like you're paying lower tax dollars than quite a few communities out there, particularly when you go out towards the west, or the east, I'm sorry, out towards the Boston area, where some of the taxes, single-family tax bills are exorbitant. So, goal, objectives, and recommendations. This is the second part that I was talking about. A goal right here would be to promote economic development that is consistent with the town's rural character. But one thing that you need to keep in mind as we were putting together the objectives and the recommendations, you need to realize that Hubbardston has very limited infrastructure. You don't have highway access. You don't have you're not a Gardner, Leominster, Fitchburg, right, or Gardner, Leominster, right on the Route 2 corridor. You don't have Route 495. You also don't have municipal water and sewer. So your expectations in terms of large-scale commercial and industrial, I just don't see it materializing in the foreseeable future, just because you don't have the infrastructure in the community to support development like that, at least now. So objectives: maintain the Economic Development Committee and facilitate the town's existing permitting process. Support existing business operations to make certain local businesses can evolve and continue. To provide jobs and revenue to the town in future years. Support the local economy and sustainability of existing businesses and attract new ones that fit in with the community while protecting environmental values. I think that's a real standout. You have wonderful natural resources in the community and you want to protect your community character. That can fit in terms of economic development by things like tourism, agriculture. Businesses like that are important to the town of Hubbardston. Another objective: promote smart growth and sustainability by strategically planning to improve infrastructure in appropriate areas. And finally, promote Hubbardston's many resources that may be of interest to visitors, which I just touched upon. So moving on to the recommendations, the draft recommendations that we've got here. We've got 7 altogether. The first one, maintain the Economic Development Committee. It's my understanding that they haven't met in some time, but it would be good if they were to meet maybe quarterly, some type of realistic meeting times, like even 2 to 3 times a year. They should be meeting and get the folks together to promote the economy in the town. And also, like, you could have like a small budget for the Economic Development Committee too, because you'll see that there are some tasks as you read through the report that they're more suitable to undertake than other boards, committees, and commissions, like maybe putting together a visitor's brochure, a tourist brochure, things like that. So if they had a small budget of a few $1,000s maybe, so that they could, I think that you'd see a bigger return on that investment than you put into it. Right here, prepare and distribute promotional brochure, like the tourism type of brochure. The town of Lunenburg is working on that right now. Me and Karen were out there a couple of weeks ago. It was a recommendation to them also. That can pay off. It can be put together with a map too for folks who are coming into town, and they know more just about what the town has to offer. So then if we wanted to turn the next slide, we have sponsored an annual festival, and you're already doing quite a bit in the town, which is great. And some volunteers are putting in a tremendous amount of effort and time, and that should continue. If you have a nice annual festival, the payoffs to the businesses could be really nice, and also it's a family-oriented community too. I'm sure the folks would love it, so I think that would be a success. The next, we have support local business. That's very important because you need to support the businesses that you have. It's not all about bringing in more business into the community. You do want to do that, but you don't want to be losing businesses either. So you want to work with the business owners and the business community. There are some different ways to do that. You can find out about some of their needs, what they think about doing business in Hubbardston and how things could improve. You could do that by putting out a survey to existing businesses. Hey, how come the town of Hubbardston, how can we help you out more as a business? You could host a meeting of business owners in town to hear from Hubbardston business owners and representatives of businesses. Me and Karen have been working with the town of Lunenburg. We met with the local businesses on a Monday morning a couple of times during the fall. We brainstormed ideas about improving the business climate in the community, and that seems to have worked out well for them. They want to form a business association and move forward, and they think that the communication between the businesses just helps everybody in general in terms of business. Also, buy local initiatives. Boost consumer demand and support for local businesses by instituting buy local initiatives. That's important for the local farmers too in the community. Identify and develop ways for residents to support local agricultural businesses. One way that you could do that is make it as part of the public educational school system, educate the kids about the importance of agriculture in the community in terms of healthy foods, and they bring materials back to the parents. So that's one way that you could promote that. Also, consider applying for any grants that might be out there. I know that there's not a whole heck of a lot of grants, but there are one or two. One is through the USDA Rural Business Development Grant Program, and that can be used in a variety of ways. It's very competitive, I was told, but you can even set up like a revolving loan fund in the community, and you could have administrative dollars, like 10% of the grant, to hire a consultant or MRPC or another entity to administer the program. And it could be like a loan program for business startups, which would be nice, or for equipment for a farmer or like a store owner. Next here we have work to facilitate the existing permitting process by developing a comprehensive development permitting guidebook. With this recommendation, we're not talking about making new permitting. It's taking your existing permitting and bringing it down to a level where it's more understandable. Some communities have put some of these together. Karen just finished one for the town of Shirley, and it'd be nice if for businesses and residential development too, if folks know how to get a permit. If they look, they have a manual right there, and it's simplified, and it works out better for someone instead of running from board to commission to board and so forth, and not really knowing the process. Another thing, aggressively seek funding for road improvements. We have a transportation department at MRPC, and I heard you're pretty good at that, and that should continue because good roads mean better economic development conditions in the community. And finally, we have number 7, identify new areas for economic development opportunities. As I had previously mentioned, you need to be realistic. You don't have the infrastructure that a Route 2 community or a Route 495 community might have. You don't have municipal water and sewer, but you could strive to go after smaller businesses in the community in appropriate locations that could serve the residents too. The residents might like a type of store or a type of business going in certain locations of the community that fits in with community character. And when you do something like this, it's really important to get as much public input as you possibly can. You could do a charrette. We've done those before. You just want to flush out everybody's thoughts and opinions before you move ahead with anything like this, like a small-scale zoning change, maybe? I don't know. But it'd be like a brainstorming type of session with a lot of community involvement involved with that. So that's what we've got right now. We can open it up to questions and answers, and Karen can help answer questions too. She's worked on economic development before in Lunenburg and Ashburnham. I've worked in Templeton and a few other communities, and we can't guarantee that we have all the answers tonight, but if we don't know the answer to something, we can find out.
Anyone got any questions? Come on, comments?
I'll just start a question. I'm fairly new in town. My name is Alice Lipdahl. And I went to the annual meeting, and there was talk about sort of some work on Main Street, road work that's being redone. And I was thinking maybe we could use that to help us with this. Can you describe what that is?
Well, I'm not involved with the on that committee, but if the selectmen are doing that, Dan Gallant is actually probably most involved with it. What they've done is put together some grants to reconstruct the center of town. What's going to happen next year, they're going to pave Route 68 from Rutland to the center of town, and then from Gardner to the center of town. They left the center of town not being paved and not being done. So the town is put up a lot of money to do the engineering. I think they're 60% or 70% complete with that now. So they've got this new concept that they want to do. I believe they're going to be coming to the annual town meeting to get the rest of the money for the design. And after that's done, they go to the process of writing the grants. And I believe they've got favorable opinion from the state about getting those grants.
And that would include like sidewalks and street
They're going to
lamps?
include sidewalks. They're going to basically it's on the.
No, it doesn't include streetlights.
It doesn't include
No?
streetlights.
No, I've been to both those meetings.
Anyway, they're gonna narrow 68, so people cars coming through town will be slower, hopefully slower. And they're gonna put parking along Route 68, and they're gonna put sidewalks in, so. Then that would help the development for retail in town as well, I think.
I think the sidewalk also extends to the recreation field,
They
which
just
is
got a grant to
a
do
considerable
that.
safety issue, I think, for young people, or for anybody.
The downtown project's great.
So you're saying narrow the road, but you're also talking about adding the sidewalks. Is that going to increase the easement that we already have on Main Street if you live on?
I'm not involved in that committee at all, so you'd have to direct those questions to that committee, which I think they're meeting in a couple of weeks.
Sidewalk, it's either an 8 or 10-foot
It's
sidewalk.
called the Main Street
With a meeting.
Committee, I believe.
And if you go on the town website, they actually have the conceptual designs on there.
Actually,
On the
Town Center Committee.
Town Center Committee, yeah. I think it's a pretty good design. I mean,
Yeah,
I've looked
it's
at it,
on
been to a
the
couple of meetings. But they're basically trying to slow the traffic down coming through the town and providing parking in town, which would help with economic development because obviously there'd be more parking in town and maybe some of the businesses, some of the housing in town, the center of town could be converted into some sort of retail business, yeah.
Is there a bike path also, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bike path.
I think it's integrated complete streets, is that a
Yeah.
buzzword?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in 2 sections. And granted, I don't sit on the committee, I just watch the videos. So that's it's online. You can watch the whole
Oh, okay.
video, it's
All right, I'll try to
online.
find
it.
The YouTube channel, there's a link on the website. But there's 2 sections. The first section is from High Street to the center of town, and then the second section is High Street to the rec field. And they're gonna the second section, they're gonna even redo the end of Williamsville. They're
High
gonna
Street
fix
and
that.
Williamsville, yeah.
So it's not so,
Ambiguous.
that's a good word, it's better than the word I was gonna use. I'm like, oh wait, I'm on camera, I
Wait a
can't
minute,
use that
wait,
word.
We were pushing for rotaries or
Yeah.
roundabouts,
Oh,
but
it's never
no
gonna
one wants
work.
those.
That's
things.
never gonna work, it's too small.
But they did get the grant to put the sidewalks to the
And it's
rec
all,
field. That
it's
was
all, it's all a fixed amount of money, and so they can't, unless the town raised funds to do streetlights at the same time, it won't be happening. Like I mentioned at the last meeting, to put in conduit,
That's another issue.
Yeah,
to put
But
in,
I think we should do streetlights. You
well,
wanna,
most people don't want streetlights in town.
yeah.
yeah, the people that live in the center of town
Oh.
don't want the
Don't want
street.
I see, I
And
get it.
actually, throughout the town's history, I've lived in town for 35 years, and I've been to several towns meetings, and they said, oh, we don't have enough money to pay for the streetlights, we're gonna turn them off, and everyone goes, okay, that's good.
It's just that if you're gonna try to have, like any kind of nightlife and those kind of establishments, and it's hard to
I'm
do
on
that
I'm on the same
without
page with you. I
streetlights.
think we need the streetlights, but
Well,
again, it's
yeah.
not shining in my window either,
Right, I do
so.
understand that.
Well, you get antique domed
Yeah, you get
directional lighting, and it's-
Fancy
nobody
ones.
will ever even, none of the residents would actually see it.
Yeah,
That's,
you get the nice
That's-
pretty ones.
That's a different committee.
That's
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with us.
yeah.
Yeah.
but it does sort of involve
does the
the
economic
process of, everything that
The
goes
commercial
on.
district starts at GFA Bank, or actually that little store used to be the Astor Comic Bank. It starts at Mr. Mike's. right
You don't
there.
mean the commercial, you mean historic, or?
Well, the commercial district starts there and goes all the way up to the Gardner Road cutoff, the other side, by the old cemetery right before the NZC land. From Mr. Mike's this way to the Williamsville, Brigham Road,
Yeah.
it's the historic district, just past your house too, just the historic district. So you can put these retail establishments in that place, but they have to do it by special permit. In which we did approve a special permit last year for the Hub of the Hub that was there. So then there's certain businesses in there. Now, That's, if people wanted to change that, we could change that as well, but I think most people in past town meetings have liked that sort of situation. So they don't want just any business going, they, tear down these historic houses and put in something, so.
The tavern.
Anyone have any ideas about what they'd like to see in town?
Bed and breakfast.
A bed and breakfast?
I
At
think,
my house.
well, wherever. I think there's a few spots in town that would be beautiful bed and breakfast, but like have you ever been to the Hartman's?
Hartman's Farm,
Yes, that is like perfect. And you would never know it's there unless you've actually been there out in Barry. It's out in the middle of nowhere. You have to drive down these little tiny roads and you're like, oh God, I can hear banjos in the background, and you get nervous. But then you come to this beautiful farm and they have a whole pavilion and like a wedding, and it's like, it's perfect. It's out in the middle of nowhere, but it's absolutely something that could totally fit into this town without anyone batting an eye at it. No one would turn it down. No one's gonna, snark about it. It would absolutely fit in. They have a little store and everything, and it's beautiful. They do all kinds of different things out there, like breakfasts and things, but that I could totally see fitting in here, and you could use it to the ability of marketing not only the town, but you could go along with, well, if you stay here, this is what's in the area. We have Mount Wachusett, we have this, and you pull it all together and make like a weekend getaway for the city folk. Like, here, come out to Hubbardston. Yes, where the hell is Hubbardston? We're gonna show you. It's right here, and it's beautiful,
When the planning board did their survey last year, the number one thing everyone wanted was a restaurant.
Yes, that would
And
be
I think that's
perfect
what
too.
everyone wants. The obstacles for a restaurant in town,
There's no water.
there's no water and there's no sewer, and you need to have a public well. Any building, even a commercial building, say if you wanted to put a warehouse in somewhere and you had more than 25 employees, you'd still have to have a public well,
Yeah.
public septic. So, I mean, these are the obstacles that John was talking about. It's very difficult for the town of Hubbardston to do those things. There are places in the center of town, there's some pretty large acreages in the center of town that would do that. In the commercial district, there is some areas. A lot of the area that's commercial district, you can't build on for whatever reason, but there is still quite a bit of commercial land. But
Excuse me, question. When you say there are obstacles, you have to have septic or sewer or public well as opposed to just like a well at your house. Where do those requirements come from? Is that state Board of Health?
the state Board of Health requirements. Did you know anything about that, John?
Title V?
Title V, it's
Yeah.
all Title V.
Yeah, they have requirements there, state regulations.
The planning board has only received 5 requests for permits last year, and we approved all of them but 1. So it's not that we're inundated with people saying, oh, we want to build a Dunkin' Donuts, or we want a Cumberland Farms, or we want something else. Those businesses are knocking at our door, asking us to come in, asking to come here. So we got to figure out a way to get the bed and breakfast, is to get a private restaurant to come in and find help.
Well, that's the whole thing is we fell off the map. We did, long ago. Hubbardston just fell off the map. You can look at a lot of uniquely Quabbin, here, I got one right here. I dare you to find half of Hubbardston in here, even though we're on this list.
What is it?
We have, it shows one church in there. It says the Historical Society in there.
Oh, it's Barry Gazette. This is
Yeah.
It's a flyer from the big
Yeah.
Barry Gazette.
But it has a bunch of stuff for Barry, has a bunch of stuff for all the surrounding towns, but Hubbardston, everything about Hubbardston, there's one thing, or nothing. There's no scouts, there's no any of the other, we have lots and lots of different boards, like the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee that does all kinds of stuff, and the Lions that does all kinds of stuff. Not in there.
Oh, it's
We have
just not
3
listed in
churches.
there. We have these things, but they're just not
Yeah,
listed.
they're not in there. And that's what I mean. The same thing with like Uniquely Quabbin, and then there's the Johnny Appleseed. We're not in them.
Johnny Appleseed we were in.
Very little.
Yeah.
Very little. And that's the whole thing, is a lot of the stuff that goes on in this town, and I have found because of doing the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and then the 250th stuff, trying to get the information out is absolutely painful. It is the most painful pulling teeth to try to get the week before the 250th, people say like, we're having a parade, we're having fireworks, there's this big banner across like 10 feet away from you. I don't understand how it was so hard to get it, even with the reverse phone calls and emails and the Facebook pages and the letters and people were still dumbfounded that we were having a celebration that day. And it's the same thing, how many times have I talked about like, for example, Hubbardston Candle Company, and people are like, we have a candle company? I'm like, yes, we do.
For promoting local businesses, this one right here, I have found out more on the Hub Celebration Facebook sharing of local businesses about places around here than anything else. I'm finding out about businesses, like, I was like, oh, really? There's this in town? Oh, there's this in town? You know, and I've been here just over 6 months, and unless you can see it on 68, you don't know about it.
You're never gonna find it.
You never.
Even the lists I get from Joyce, and they're not on there. They're not on there.
I found a business today going through, what was the
A
name?
ruptured duck.
The Ruptured Duck.
Yeah, so that's Bill Shea.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Here's some
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah. But Bill Shea, yeah. He's gonna be at the fair again. He's gonna bring his, this time he's gonna bring his collection from, Jurassic Park. So rather than his Back to the Future exhibit, he's bringing his Jurassic Park exhibit that he has done. And we're also in the talks of, he's doing another movie night and he wants me in on it with the police. So we're doing that again as well, along with the fair. And then I have the egg hunt, which we might have to bump back. And then the other thing I'm working on right now is the dinghy dash. I'm pretty sure, which that's a whole new concept, and that's gonna, like, it's a cardboard boat regatta. I'm just waiting on a location. You build a boat out of nothing but cardboard and duct tape, and we're gonna race them. And you have to actually get in it. Like 1 to 4 people are actually paddling these things. It's gonna be awesome.
Cardboard.
Yes, cardboard and duct
That's why it's
tape.
coated.
No, well, it doesn't matter. It's just, the only thing you can build it out of is cardboard and duct tape. I've seen them. It's the dumbest thing. It's so fun. It's just stupid. It's just to advertise only Hubbardston, but to make a name for, like, you know, like brand something like the River Rat Race, like they do out in Athol. But also you can have a business, you can advertise through it and stuff like that. So it's going to be like a community-based event, but fun. I'm also working on, with Michelle Murch, we talked about, there wasn't enough time last year, but we're going to be doing a Small Business Saturday. So that's another thing we're looking at doing coming up in the fall. And then again, we'll do the light fight again. I'm also trying to resurrect the frozen assets. But the biggest thing I want to do is I want to try to build some kind of Chamber of Commerce here, like an actual something, like whether it be a website. And I've talked to we've had a lot of turnover over there, so I've been like kind of like waiting till we have somebody permanent again to restart talking about that. But I want to build some kind of small Chamber of Commerce that isn't the standard one like they do in Gardner where it's pay for play. Because I can't stand that. I'm sorry, that totally pisses me off when you have to pay to play for your own business. I want something that advertises this town and that's it, not the other towns, so that way you can go if you would like to be a part of it, and people can find out, like the way I'm trying to advertise these businesses that nobody knows about, that I'm finding out about, that I've just stumbling upon.
Kathy, I can help you with that. I was president of the HBA for 5
Sweet.
years here.
Great.
That nobody wanted to do anything
Yeah.
when I was president, and it just ran into that old school mentality. It became like a social club.
Yeah,
So it really died a painful death. But I
Yes.
had so many high hopes for that.
then good.
Is
I will
everything
be-
you're talking about,
I will be over to visit you,
Okay.
dear.
That's, John, this is what you were talking about, an economic development committee.
Yes.
It can be called a chamber, it can be called whatever
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
But it's really to promote business. That's what one of your recommendations.
Yeah, also a business association might be good too. I think that you might have had one in the past.
That was the HBA, Hubbardston
Yeah.
Business
Yeah,
Association.
okay. Those can be.
We started the
valuable
frozen
tools.
assets
Yeah.
thing, we had a lot of.
Yeah, I have all the spreadsheets from Laura, and I want to resurrect that, and I'm hoping that money can go and pay for
You
maybe
made a lot of
fireworks every year, which would be awesome, which would be a huge draw. The same thing with like the light fight, the way I'm trying to rig it up is not only, if 10 people from out of town come in to check out all the lights in town, and say they stop for gas, that's 10 people that spend money in our town. That never was gonna happen. If they stopped and bought a pizza at the pizza place for their special, or at the Hubtown Diner that they opened up special and they sold some food, that was never gonna be money spent in our town. It was never gonna happen without that light fight. So it's not only to bring the community together and have some fun with it, but it's also got that background of let's advertise some businesses and get these people mapped out so you actually know that they exist, that they're out there in those woods to come and see, you know? And that's the method behind a lot of my madness of doing these crazy, wild, where there is a background to it. There's a reason for it.
Rick, do you know the Lions, how do they get so many people coming to the haunted hayride? And they can't be all Hubbardston people that go to that.
No.
And how do they get that out for people to come to that? You have any
Well,
idea?
just, as far as the advertisement, there's something across the road, there's on the website.
That's unbelievable. You've got
Word of mouth.
thousands
Word of mouth.
And you get people like me sharing it everywhere to all over the
There's
place.
there's no, I don't believe there's any ads in the paper or anything. That's kind of old fashioned now.
Do they sponsor Field Day? Was that Lions
Yeah,
or the
Lions.
Yeah,
town?
Lions
That
and
was, I
Field Day, and
thought-
I do the
Lions
Hubbardston
does a
Lions.
lot to
Yeah.
promote businesses
We
in
should-
town.
Yeah, get a collaboration going, because the fair I thought was very good.
Well, the Lions have talked to me about helping them with the fairs.
And that's how I discovered the candle people.
Yeah.
You know, if you can have an opportunity to put up a station and present your business.
Exactly.
So I think actually the idea of a survey of businesses, what would help, and would you be interested in doing some of these things? In, my old town was Paxton, we put on a career day in the school with local businesses coming in, basically as a response to the federal government saying that kids don't get enough exposure to career, you know, but it will work both ways, right? So collaboration between the school and the library and the other social clubs, like the Lions Club. If you could do that, and then just have basic information about, you know, where the gaps are in our services. Like, do we have a sufficient daycare? Do we have the
Yes.
things that families
There's lots of
need?
them. Believe it or not, there's a lot of daycares in this
So
town.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
try.
that,
No,
but that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The concept,
Yes,
no,
yes.
those are all great ideas. Anyone have any comments or concerns about the marijuana businesses coming to town, or if they do, no one cares one way or the other?
No, it's so expensive and there's so much red tape.
It's over $500,000 to get the license.
Yeah.
Right.
If
And
they
they can
can.
deny you and you don't get your money back. I was just talking to somebody who owns
Right.
a smoke shop.
Because we're going to be proposing a new bylaw in town for locating marijuana establishments in town. The towns have to actually do it. If we don't do it, they can go anywhere. So what we're recommending to the town, we're going to treat them like any other business. If,
For a grower or a smoke shop?
anything to do with marijuana. Smoke shops are different. You have to have 10% of the people in town sign a petition to allow having a smoke shop in town. And then it has to go to the ballot for a vote. So that's for consumption, like a bar or a hookah bar or something like that.
What about growing it?
Growing, it's the same thing. We're gonna just say, that what we're proposing and asking the town to do is to zone it only into the commercial, in the commercial developed areas. And they have to abide by all the state rules and regulations.
So somebody, say there's that industrial park up on 68, wants to put up a small building, they could do that there?
Yeah, they'd have to go through the special permit
Permit, but
process
they
and
could do it.
apply, you know, like
Yes.
everyone said, it's very expensive to do it. It would be kind of unlikely. It would come to Hubbardston, but you do have to have it zoned for a place.
But there's no way they're gonna have it in a small, have you ever seen any of them? There's some in
I haven't.
Fitchburg, you won't ever know that they're there unless you look-
Colorado.
Unless you look for the HVAC.
Yeah.
That's what tips it off, is the HVAC system on the roof.
The other
and
problem-
sides.
Quite a few
But they're-
rules about it.
But they're
I mean, it's all
big.
indoor,
It's
it's all
not
secure.
little.
Yeah.
They're not gonna put a little and grow.
The other thing,
Big.
they're very, very dependent on water and
Yeah.
sewer. because it's all hydroponic.
Yeah.
So, and we just, I mean, I think it's unlikely that would happen in town if someone wanted to do it. But if they wanted to do it, they'd have to do it. We're treating it like any other business. We felt on the planning board it was probably the simplest solution.
So that guy that came in on Old Princeton,
Old Princeton Road, he wanted to build a 10,000
yeah,
square foot.
would he be able to? If you got a special, there's no way to get a special permit to do that or something?
No, if we zoned it only in that area. And the police weren't excited about that either. And the Cannabis Commission, I doubt would even approve something like that because they don't like remote locations.
Yeah.
I mean, he was thinking it's a good thing in remote, but they wouldn't do it. And they're talking hundreds and hundreds of cars, people going down Old Princeton Road. I'm sure the neighbors wouldn't like it too much either, so. The recommendations from the police chief was have it on the main road. Recommends, the Cannabis Commission is you want it in a well-lit, easily patrolled area. So the only places to fit that is Route 60.
When are you gonna make the bylaw?
Pardon?
When are you gonna pass that bylaw?
Well, we're gonna propose the bylaw, it's gonna be on the annual town meeting, so. Otherwise, if we don't pass the bylaw, this is the bad part, if you owned 100 acres of land, you could put up a 50,000 or 100,000 square foot building right next door to someone, and there's nothing they could do about it. So the alternative is to zone it in the
Well, 'cause as
commercial
of what,
zone. We're
July?
treating it like any other business, and
It's
it
as
should
of
be
Ju-
treated that way.
As of July is when they can start opening these businesses, I
They
believe.
can start applying for the businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, our town meeting's in June.
And Gardner's got one already on the.
Yeah, Leominster, I think, is too.
Anyone want to talk about anything else about zoning, or does anyone feel that zoning is okay? A survey showed that about 50-50, some people like the zoning, some people didn't. Does anyone want to comment on that, or? No?
I don't know. If they're saying that the process is too hard to go through, if that's a problem, then there's a checklist that somebody could easily make, you know, A, B, C, D, you have to do those. I think that's definitely a good idea.
Patty's who is the planning board clerk, and she's just starting to work on that.
Yeah,
So
because that would simplify, especially for people that have no clue what they're doing.
I just started using Ashburnham's as an example because they had a really nice booklet, like welcome to town, this is how you get a building permit, this is how you get an electrical permit, and then, you know, anything else, how to apply for a special permit I'd like to put in.
Make sure you have those town office hours on that.
Well,
Give me 3 more, that helped you. Great.
But a lot of these recommendations that, you know, we've been working with John for about 6 months on this stuff. A lot of these recommendations we've seen, and you're already doing the annual meeting thing. We already have field day. We've been doing, how long have we been doing that for?
Years.
Years and years. So that's a good thing. So we're starting to promote towns. My personal opinion is Hubbardston is just on the verge of the megalopolis of Boston. They put this new train station in Westminster, which we were just renting out a house to people, and we put ads in Craigslist in Boston and stuff, and we had a ton of people coming in looking to the apartment or the house. Specifically, they put a pin on the Westminster train station. They do a circle at 12 or 15 miles around it, and they were looking for apartments, and they're using that to go into Boston. And I think you're going to find it's going to have a huge impact in this town. Westminster, the building is going crazy, so it's got this big wave. It's heading towards Hubbardston. So everything you say is right. It's been passed over by a lot of people for a long time, but where are they going to go? You can't go to Gardner. Rutland's being built up like crazy.
Yeah, and we have a better tax bracket.
Our tax is.
And the houses.
When John did this, we were shocked that our taxes are so low.
Yeah, well, compared
We
to
have
surrounding.
such.
Well,
That's because we haven't. done it.
Relatively low.
Well,
Well,
I mean, we're the bottom third
Right, about through this thing.
of the state.
One more thing about permitting and office hours and all this kind of thing. You know, if I had a magic wand, I could wave the magic wand, and there's really no reason to come into the office to get a piece of paper that you go home and fill out. If we go to electronic forms and electronic submittals, that will relieve the office hour issue more than just having more hours. It actually lets you sit at home and fill out the form for the well permit or whatever it is, you know.
We're trying to find some online payment,
I like
ways to
people.
do online
And just
payments as well, which will
drag that process up into the
Do you at least have the
late
forms online to
1990s.
download?
Yeah.
So you can print them yourself
Yeah.
and bring them in at least?
And you
Okay.
can email me the form and then send in a check. So now we're 75% there, at least for the building department. I guess for the planning board too, really.
Yeah.
It's just, I think we need to check, we need a little more hand holding. When you look at that form, all the forms, and they're really overwhelming, I think. Especially if you don't know anything about the business, you know, what the heck is a CSL license and who has that? Do I need it? And
Yeah.
One of the ideas I had about, for economic development in town is a bunch of people put up some money to maybe finance a restaurant to come into town, because it's hard to get financing for something like
how
that.
about the farmer's market? Why don't we have a proper farmer's
yeah.
market?
Well, the history of the farmers markets, when the agricultural commission started the farmers market, and it just failed because people weren't coming to it.
Oh, really?
And farmers markets throughout the state are losing popularity. There's some big ones, and people are going to those, but most of the farmers markets, farmers aren't going to anymore. I'm a farmer, we used to go to farmers markets, we just,
Don't do it
it's a
anymore.
complete
Barry's
waste
is
of time.
kind of dead.
They're also,
Westminster's hit and miss.
they're also not funding the HIP program, which was a health initiative where if you bought at the farmers markets, you could, with your EBT cards, you could get reimbursed. That's, I think, threatened, if not already gone.
We have a great fruit and vegetable person up, Kathy Hansgate,
Yeah.
at Ladybug Farm. She does live across from your house. She's a certified.
I tried talking with, and I've talked to them a few times about it, and I'll probably hit them up again, Keith and Debbie,
Keith and Debbie.
about possibly, like, even if it was like once a month on a Sunday morning, you know, so you could hit Rieta traffic to get, yeah, but it's again, he said the same thing. It's a losing battle. Keith and I have talked about this numerous times. It's very difficult to get people there, and it's the same thing, like Barry's is having the issues in Westminster's.
Everyone thinks Rieta traffic is a good thing, drawing people, but we found, I had a store on 68, and we used to sell plants and vegetables and stuff like that. They're either going to the Rieta or they're leaving Rieta, and they don't stop. And if they do stop, you know, you have a bag of peaches for $2, and they'll say, we'll give you $1.
Yeah, quarter. I'll give you a quarter.
Give you a quarter.
Give you a
So
quarter.
it's just, the Rieta traffic,
Yeah.
we closed on Sundays because we just didn't want these people stopping by, because not many people stopped, actually, so.
Well, because there are fruit and vegetable vendors there at Rieta, and they do a killing, because they're there every week, and they like sell mass quantities. I don't know if they're undercutting themselves, or I'm not sure, because I don't go in and chat with them, because most of them aren't like towny people, and I'm going after towny people, you know? So I'm not totally sure, but they do a killing there. I mean, they're selling like crazy.
But the Rieta traffic, I don't think is a viable option for people, for businesses in town. I don't think you get many people going to them, my experience. Anything else? Any recommendations?
So I did have another thought, and I brought it up to a bunch of people. I'm gonna throw it out here, because screw it. I'm just gonna throw it out here. I brought it up to both principals now, PTO. I threw it out at that Quabbin night meeting, the QRMP people. Yes. And I've talked about it to numerous people, and I even saw, I think in January's meeting, Vin Ritchie talked about this, and I've already said it a bunch of times. I think Quabbin is missing the boat on doing some kind of after-school night education activities throughout the 6 schools. That could be, Monty Tech does it, the college does it, a bunch of the colleges do it for summer programs, and let me tell you, I've been approached by Monty Tech to teach one of those classes, and there's no way they're not making a killing off this.
Continuing education.
It don't even continue, it could be anything from somebody that's gonna teach you how to knit, you know, to somebody that's going to teach you how to run a business. There's a whole range of stuff. It could be artsy crafty to you know, how not to fail as an adult, you know, basic, like how to read an electric bill and how to do a checkbook. You know, there's a whole range of stuff that if you look through the books, you get them usually in the mail, and you look through them, but they charge, X amount per student. They have 6 schools for the Quabbin district that they could utilize for different areas. Every time Stone Cow has a class, they sell out. Even the Hub of the Hub, that bead one, the first one she did sold out. Now she's doing a second one. The Hubtown Diner does a paint thing. They sell out. People like going to these little class things and learning, and just, it's, usually a short amount of time. It could be ones for kids, it could be for adults, but it could be money coming into the school district. And I've said it, I can't even tell you to how many people, and everyone has just like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and that's it. It never goes anywhere, and I don't understand who the hell I have to talk to get somebody to start seriously looking into this. Yes.
The library has sponsored things like everything from Lego
Yes.
for kids
I've been to
how
like
to
their
play
chocolate making and
how to
stuff.
play a ukulele, how to make chocolates,
Yeah.
I think was in one night.
Yeah.
How to do
One-
pastel painting.
Yeah.
And it's very similar, and it's, I think, very nearly free.
Yeah.
If not completely free.
But these would run, like, if they do it the way the Mountain does it or the Monty Tech, it's usually, a few weeks
6
on
in
a
a row
certain,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah, something like that, and you pay like $30 a head. But they pay the teacher, they offered me $100 to teach the series, and whatever I needed printed up or made up, they do it, because they do it in-house at Monty Tech. But you think about it, so if they're paying me $100 and they're making $30 a head, and I get to, have 20 students, how much money are they making off this? And I'm one class. Now times that by the whole book that they send out. You can't tell me that that's not helping them in their funds. Now why can't Quabbin do that?
You probably have to talk to the new superintendent there.
But where would the funds be allocated to?
I have no idea. Who cares?
Who would-
That
who
would
would
be money
actually
that
get
goes into Quabbin. They're always complaining they're short of money. This could help.
What a great advertiser. I'm trying to get Bill Shea to do a how to spot a fake, just the YouTube videos, how to spot a fake. Like if you are interested in World War II memorabilia, he's the guy to talk to. He's
Yeah.
on the board for all these museums and stuff, but he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
But why couldn't he tell me how to spot a fake?
Exactly.
It's a
There's-
war gun or something else. He's got an eye for that.
Yeah.
But I thought, because he wrote that book and he wants to sell more books, I'm like, you need to get yourself up to the library, have a little freebie. But if he did something like that,
Yeah, and that's what I mean. They used to do after school for kids, right after school, I think the PTO ran it, and they did like a 4-week session, and like the kids did stuff like Legos or learn how to do this on the computer or chess club or whatever. And I used to sign my kids up in a heartbeat. I'm like, oh, hell yes, 4 weeks after school, and they get to have fun and interact and learn something new. Great. Please, let me write a check, It was cheap money. It was right after school. And they could do that with the kids. They could do that for adults. They could do it for whatever. But there's all these buildings that they claim are underused. Why don't they utilize them? Because that's another draw to the town, that there's this stuff going on. If your school district is active and you have all these extra amenities, that's part of the amenities of town. If there's stuff that's always going on and all these community events, that's another thing that's on the checklist of, hey, that's pretty neat. I'm looking at the school district as, why is this one better than this one? Should I move here? Should I move there? That's another draw.
The cost to keep it open, as opposed to the offset of what you make?
The schools are open anyway.
Yeah.
But the schools
They
are
have to heat the
open.
school anyway, so.
Yeah, after they're open till what, 6 or 8 at night every
I'm
night.
not in disagreement with you.
You know?
My God, my 11-year-old just started an art class in Barry. If there was one here, she probably would have done it here, but,
Well, we'll wrap it up then. It's great. Do the best we can. We're going to be taking everything what you said, and we'll try to incorporate as much of it we can in the plan, and maybe the goals and stuff from here.
Can I just mention that we're on, where will we be? On YouTube? Will we post it on YouTube?
Yes.
And, tonight might have been a hard night to get out. If people, missed this and you suggest to them that they watch it on YouTube and they have a comment, we'll certainly take written comments. Either, stuff with a postage stamp on it, or a letter to either Tom at Planning Board or our clerk at Planning Board. We'll gladly accept comments from the public So I just wanted that message to get out.
Do you actually post that though, when the YouTube video goes up? If you watch this and you have comments, to do it that way?
I'm not certain how YouTube gets told to the world that it exists.
You can subscribe and stuff like that, but I wouldn't give feedback to the planning board via YouTube.
Oh, no.
because
No, that's not
separate.
what I'm saying, but he's saying that they would gladly take a letter written or something sent in by doing that. Like, I will agree, a lot of stuff, I don't even know Kate, but I knew your name and now I know your face. But I see a lot of stuff shared on Facebook and then I share it on my site, like too. So I think a lot of stuff happens that way.
Facebook, and I meant YouTube.
I know that, but we could say, check out the YouTube video, and we could share it on Facebook, which would make that much more people look at it.
Yeah, those funny
You can
addresses.
subscribe to the channel on YouTube. I usually post a link to the videos once they're live on the public access Facebook page, and then links to the videos I believe are posted on the town website as well.
And I understand that, I just think we could get word out more on Facebook, once we could, do a little blip of the
In other words,
YouTube, and
I
it
will
brings it
share
down.
it.
Oh, yes, and I would too, but that's what I'm saying, I do share a lot
Anytime
of
you
what
want
you
to say
say.
anything to the planning board, just write to there's a email address that goes to Patty's email.
Yeah, we're right on the main website.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we're always looking for people's comments and concerns, and like even writing these changes to these bylaws and stuff we're working on. It's not up to the planning board to implement these changes, to vote for these changes. It's all done at town meeting. The town, all the zoning bylaws that we have in town, and all the general bylaws, all the laws in town, are passed by the people of the town. They're not passed by individual people or individual boards. The planning board is only implementing the zoning that the people of the town of Hubbardston want, and it voted on at town meetings. So if people want to change something like that, they can certainly come to the planning board and talk to us, and if we feel it's a good change, we could recommend it. If we feel we don't think like that change, you can still go to the town and do a petition with the town and try to change it yourself. So we're very open to changes and comments. Okay? Anything else?
I'd like to thank John for is it
Karen.
Karen,
Karen?
that was close.
Well, I'm sorry, I've only met you for the first time. But I'd like to thank you for the work you did. It took you from about September till now. It was not just a go home and do this in a half an hour thing. He's worked on it. Tom got the grant that funded this, and just like to thank you for your efforts.
Sure.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Great. Good. We'll take a break.
Yes, there are cookies from the Giacomo's, which
Really
is
good.
probably the latest
Oh, yeah,
business to come
This is
to
a copy
town.
of the draft, and this is the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes,
We're not
thank you very much.
Planning board meeting, we're stopping this hearing.
Did you get one?
I did, thank you so much. Thank you.
I don't think it was bad.
Outside for people. Yeah.
I thought it was really informative.
Okay.
I like all the ideas. We should give everyone one of those ideas.
I mean, if they fit in small.
I was lecturing out him while
No problem.
Told John we gotta get one and put it in the bag. Right, we didn't concentrate too much on, you mentioned.
Excuse me, I'm just gonna go around. Thank you.
I think selling walking trails. and-
You can just drop it. Thank you.
Stuff you can take home.
All right.
Yeah.
Retirees coming out.
No, absolutely.
Not, if you not live on the street, you could have.
I'm gonna start doing what Baker did, notice it now. This is Canada, she said she has to.
I guess you don't have any minutes? Oh,
No new minutes.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
stuff
no.
for Viv to sign off.
Okay. And we already did the economic development report from John Hume, and then we're going to discuss the bylaws. Did everyone, Tom's got copies of the...
Should be looking at the 314 edition.
So what, I talked to Vin about this today, and he said if we want to pass this tonight, vote on this tonight, we can forward it to the selectmen.
I think we should, because
Yeah.
they're gonna perhaps change some wording anyway, so, not them, but maybe maybe legal.
Yeah. So we're gonna ask for Article 2 definition, we're gonna change the zoning bylaw, Article 2, definitions. We're gonna add 2.40 to commissions, and then 2.41 marijuana establishments. 2.4, the Cannabis Control Commission established by Section 76 of Chapter 10 of the Massachusetts General Law. And then 2.41, marijuana establishment, a marijuana cultivator, marijuana testing facility, marijuana products manufacturer, marijuana retailer, or any other type of licensed or unlicensed marijuana-related business, including the sale of paraphernalia used in the growing and use of consumption of marijuana. Those are the changes that we're recommending to the town for the changing the zoning bylaw to accommodate the
Not quite. That's the Article 2 changes.
that Article 2 changes.
Now below, if you read Article 4, this also relates to marijuana.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Article 4, add the following, 4.5, use permitted by special permit in commercial district. G, we're gonna add G, marijuana establishment. Any and all marijuana businesses must comply with all Cannabis Control Commission rules and regulations and the Town of Hubbardston zoning and general bylaws.
So I'd like to make a motion that we send the marijuana-related bylaw changes, the Article 2 and Article 4, to the selectmen.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right?
Any more discussion?
Nope,
I'm good.
that was good.
All in favor? Yep,
So that top half of that page goes.
that's gone. Okay, so the other change we have is Article 20, use of large-scale solar photovoltaic installations. And under 20.2 definitions, we're gonna change 20.2.4, delete site by right and replace with by special permit. And it will read 20.2.4 will read designated location, large-scale solar-mounted photovoltaic installations may be cited by special permit in all zoning districts in the town. Anyone, any comments on that?
Special permit. So, yes, I'm all set with that.
Tom?
I'm all set with that, but we're not voting on it yet. We'll
No,
go
no,
down the
we're
whole
just
thing.
we're just gonna, instead of doing the
Yeah.
whole thing. Okay, the next one is 20.2.5, large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations. Delete ground-mounted. That's new. Delete and is not roof and replaced with or a delete mounted. Delete and has a minimum nameplate capacity of 250 kWdc and replace with solar panels covering 20,000 square feet or more on one lot. Okay, so,
When we're all done doing those things, it'll read like the next sentence.
okay. 20.2.4, large-scale solar photovoltaic installations, a solar photovoltaic system that is structurally mounted on the ground or roof with a solar panels covering 20,000 square feet or more on one lot. I didn't see this on the roof. Where did that come from?
I'll have to go back to what you gave me a long time ago.
I didn't think we were gonna
Um,
change the, on the roof,
This
I mean, you're
is-
not gonna put 20,000 square feet on a roof, are we? I don't know where you would. Why would we need a special permit if they were gonna put them on a roof?
Let me
We
find,
talk about the possibility of putting it on one of the school buildings or where it's some big roof where it could be mounted.
I know, but I think that's where they should be put on the roof.
all right, here's what we started out with. Let me, this was just with solar panel covering more than 20,000 square feet.
That's what I
Oh,
remember.
there's the first one, as a right, we get rid of that.
Yeah, right.
On a single property, and he changed that to on one lot.
Okay.
This is the screening. So I don't know exactly where he got this. Large-scale, ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations may be cited by special permit. Done. Large-scale solar photovoltaic installation. A solar photovoltaic system that is structurally mounted on the ground or a roof with solar panels covered. So this is a definition.
Right.
I think the definition's okay.
Well, I just don't see the need to put it on a roof, you know?
Well, but like like Kendall says, if we go down to the highway department or up on a school or something, 20,000 square feet isn't that big for a building.
Is Country Hens on the roof? They have a solar.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
I didn't know they did. Where is it?
Yeah.
I don't actually know, but I know they have their own solar,
Mm.
and it's fairly large. So I don't know if it's on a roof or if it must
How
be.
did that happen? Or is it?
Well, it's just like any other person. I have a big system and we don't have to get a permit.
They got a
It's
building
obviously
permit,
less
but
than
probably not.
Well, yeah, it must be less than 20,000 square feet.
Right, right.
Or in the old days, I'm not sure, we didn't have that
250
number. Yeah. You're right, 250 kW and down, we don't have to do anything.
No. So this one is over 20,000 square feet.
Now, what we were doing here was we were getting rid of the 250 kW
Right,
because we wanted them to be able to use any kind of electrical panel.
right.
And we substituted 20,000 square feet.
Well, I guess there's no reason not to have roof on there.
I think he's just doing it to be inclusive.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, 20.5. Kendall, do you have any?
No, I'm all set.
25.5, the owner of a solar installation shall provide a report to the planning board in January.
No, you missed one, the back of the page,
Oh. I didn't know it was on 2 pages,
two-sided.
2-sided. I was going to say, there's a lot less than I thought there was. Where'd the rest of it go? Okay, 20.3.4, site plan review, delete ground mounted, delete with 250 kW or larger of a rated nameplate, delete 3 after the word article. And it's going to read, the new 2.3 will read, large-scale solar photovoltaic installation shall undergo a site plan review by the site plan review authority as set forth in section Article 9 zoning bylaw, prior to the construction, installation of, or modification of this section. So we're just basically changing,
We took out the
The
250,000 because we
250,000,
didn't have to, 250 kW because we didn't have to say it twice.
yeah, right. The dimensions and density requirements, okay,
We took out ground mounted
Right.
because the definition is either ground mounted or roof mounted.
right. Right. Dimension and density requirements. 20.3.8.2, what is it, abutment structures?
Pertinent,
Pertinent
I don't know what that word means, but
structures. Add vegetation screen shall be evergreen and be in place prior to issuing a certificate to generate system. The screen height shall be 1.5 times the height of the highest screen solar panel or abutment structure listed above. The view from the street of the budding residence shall be screened.
yeah, what we're trying to do is line of sight blocking. We're not requiring that someone build a screen all the way around something. It's line of sight from a residence, line of sight from the street.
I think we need to, the screen height shall be 1 times the height.
That's what,
Shall
here's
be
what you
every-
had before, Tom, if you remember.
Yeah,
You had 1.5 times
yeah,
of the tallest solar panel shall be in place and shield from view a roadway or property owner's home. So he changed that to a residence.
well, we should have the roadway in there.
He does. View from the street
Oh, from the street, okay. So
and
he's just
abutting
re-
residences. He's using a little more bylaw language than either one of us used in our earlier revisions.
Appurtenant means attached to. That helps.
Appurtenant,
Like accessory buildings attached to a main building, for example.
So when we're all done making these changes, it'll read like that appurtenant structures thing. Want to read that one out loud?
Yep. All pertinent structures to large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations shall be subject to reasonable regulations concerning the bulk and height of structures, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements. All such abutment structures, including but not limited to the equipment, shelter, storage facilities, transformers, substations, shall be architecturally compatible with each other. Wherever reasonable, structures shall be shaded from view by by vegetation or joint or clusters to avoid adverse visual impact. The vegetation screen shall be evergreen and in place prior to the issuing of a certificate to generate for the system. The screen height shall be 1 times the height of the highest screen solar panel or abutment structure listed above. The view from the street and abutting residence shall be screened.
Now, what's going on here is the first paragraph that you read, starting with all appurtenant and ending with visual impacts,
Right,
was what was there.
right.
And we have added the second paragraph, starting with the
Right.
vegetation and going through to screened.
You know, I questioned the vegetation screen. Nowhere have I seen where, let's say they use pine trees or Christmas trees, whatever they are, evergreen trees, how far apart they have to be.
Well, they have to be screened. And,
I know they can't be touching because they'll die.
no,
They can be touching.
They can be touching, but usually what happens is the type of tree you choose comes with a recommended planting. And I've looked this up, and I don't know if I have it with me, but some vegetation is allowed to just be, tree. Others, to be effective, you stagger them.
Correct.
Right,
And I believe it is proportional to the size of the tree you're planting and the type of the tree you're planting. So we could have approval over those kind of details when they submit their
When they
plans.
submit the plans,
We-
okay.
We can judge or ask about the effectiveness of the screening. Is it really blocking view?
well, there's one thing I'd like to see deleted here. Wherever reasonable should be deleted. That should not be, that is a subjective thing that could be argued all day long.
Well, but the planning board has the authority to
I know, but
do,
they can, I think we should delete wherever reasonable in structures and get rid of the word should. It says will be shaded from view. This is more of a permanent solution.
I have some examples.
I know, Tom, but wherever reasonable can be argued, okay?
Well, you can argue both ways.
I know, but if it ends up in court and someone else makes a decision, if we say structures will be shaded from view by the vegetation, there's no question. It takes the decision out of the planning board's hands and leaves it in the zoning bylaw. It says it will be. It's not, it should be, or wherever it's reasonable, or wherever, we may not be here. Some other group might be here, and we don't want to.
Well, let's just discuss it for a second. I went around and took some pictures of screenings. And here's one over in Barry on South Street.
Right.
I think that's an ineffective screen.
Right.
It might be in 20 years, but it's not today.
Well, in 20 years, they're going to be taking it down.
Well, I'm just saying, it might be when the trees get big and strong, but
Yeah.
it's not now. But they go around the corner, you can't see it very well, but the fence is a square, and they send the trees across the face that's parallel to the road. Then they send them down the side,
This
100 feet.
This to me would be unacceptable.
Yes, it's not effectively screened. But on the other hand, you don't need to go all the way around this property. You only need to screen it from the street.
But my change is taking that out, doesn't affect that. It says, well, structures shall be shaded from view of vegetation to avoid adverse impact. I mean, the adverse impact is something.
That's another subjective
It's a
term.
subjective term, but it's much less subjective than, wherever reasonable. Well, the soil types we don't want to put this type of vegetation. I mean, I just seem to think it's.
Well, I'll remind you that this first paragraph has been there already. We're
Yeah.
not making any changes to it yet.
I realize that, but I think it should be changed, and I've always thought it should be changed.
Well, you didn't propose it the last.
Back time, I hadn't
in your-
read it that time, yeah.
We're trying to work off the thing we talked about
I realize
2
that.
meetings ago.
Well, I think we should destruct. I didn't think we were gonna keep this whole paragraph. I thought we were just gonna say vegetation.
Well, that's what we did. We added
Yeah.
your paragraph.
We added that in there. But wherever reasonable basically takes away all the power from this paragraph.
I don't think so. I think when they submit their drawings, we can say, we want 50 more feet of screening here. Or we want, or you don't need to put it where there's already a tobacco barn.
I know, but they're gonna say, well, that's not reasonable. That's not reasonable.
Well, if they don't think it's reasonable, then they don't get their permit.
Yeah, but they can, if you argue that with them, and that ends up being, that could be overturned very easily.
I think that's true of so many things we do.
I do, I agree, but this one here just opens the door to that. And we can't allow these systems to destroy people's property and the enjoyment of their property. And we have to make this so strong, and the statement here so strong, that it's not up to us. It's, the bylaw says, the objective of the bylaw is to prevent these things from being seen by people who live next door.
What if you had a 300-foot driveway and a house at the end of it, and a solar system next door? Does it have to be screened from every position on that driveway? Or does it only have to be screened from the residence? In other words, when you're driving up your driveway, you can see this, but when you get to your house and you park your car, you don't see it anymore. It's screened.
I would say it would have to be screened from driving up the driveway. Because part of your enjoyment is driving down your driveway to your house and you just see this big looming solar
So
field.
does it have to be screened from any point on your property?
Not on my property.
No, I meant on the person who has the driveway.
Yeah,
If he's not driving his car up anymore, he's walking his dog.
Right.
And he's over on his lawn. Can he see it then?
he shouldn't be able to see it from anywhere on his property.
Well, that's not what we're saying. We're saying screened from residences.
Well, that's your residence. Your residence is your property.
Boy, that's not the way I'm reading this. I'm reading a residence as a home,
Well, a home is your,
a building, a structure, a defined location. Look out your window, sit on your front porch.
I just don't, wherever reasonable is It's just waiting, it's just so,
Well, that's an unchanged word. We didn't change that paragraph.
well, we're still changing things, aren't we?
I believe, personally, my driveway and my lawn is my residence. Does the word residence mean, a house?
I'm not sure now. I thought,
Can you look
I
that up?
thought I understood it.
Yeah, residence, let's see what that says. Because I agree, I wouldn't want to be walking up my driveway and looking over at this huge,
Solar field. It'll
Solar
destroy your field, the feeling of your property.
mm-hmm.
It'll be looming over it.
So it says, "The view from the street and abutting residences shall be screened." Up in the
Persons
paragraph.
from a place where someone lives, is the definition. Is the-
Just it doesn't give a structure or person's
It's a place.
property.
A place is your
So it's a
property.
house.
Yeah.
So it doesn't say anything about a solid residence or out in the yard.
Well, then the view-
Domicile,
The view from the street,
actual home.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Sorry, he was just asking me a definition
Yeah,
of
but what is it?
residence. It says domicile, a place where one actually lives is distinguished from one's domicile or a place of temporary sojourn.
what's the definition of residence? Well, the view from the street and abutting residences shall be screened. That's
Well-
pretty all-encompassing then.
Right.
What
But
are we-
it-
what
but
are-
you-
What's uncertain about it?
What I don't like is wherever reasonable. I don't have a problem with that part. It's wherever reasonable.
All right, when they say structures should be shaded, what are they talking about? What's that structure? That's not the house.
No, that's the structure.
That's like a transformer
Right,
or a...
right.
What about a telephone pole?
Doesn't say anything about telephone poles.
I know, but that's a structure.
Then it should be shaded.
Well, they're kind
Well,
of
they don't,
tall.
well, we found out they don't actually need to have all these telephone poles. They can do other.
Well, that would be our goal, but I'm having a little trouble. I think that view from the street and the abutting residence is pretty all-encompassing.
But then you go wherever reasonable. See, they can just sit there and say that's not reasonable. And you
Well-
can say, well, you can vote it down all day long and say,
What I'm trying to say is the whatever reasonable sentence doesn't either apply to or counteract the view from the street and abutting residences shall be screened. They're talking about two different things. The structures in the wherever reasonable structure is something out on the property. It's on the property of the solar farm. It's a structure. It's the maintenance shed or the transformer or
why don't
whatever
we
those
strike
things
the whole
are.
sentence then? I mean, if that's the case. Because it says here, there's the whole thing, the first sentence, all structures and large-scale ground-mounted photovoltaic installations shall be subject to reasonable regulations, and all structures shall be limited to equipment shelters. Yeah, see,
Well, words are tough.
yeah, I know. Oh. Structures and large-scale. So is these structures that they're talking about, they're just talking about,
Transformers
Transformers and stuff.
and that's what I think. See, that's not my point I'm trying to make. Those structures are not residences. Those structures are transformers and converters and rectifiers or whatever they got in there. Or even panels.
Where does it say on here, Tom, that the whole system will be, is that from the previous page? That are gonna be shaded from,
The 1.5 thing is up here in this next paragraph. Well, it's down here too. This paragraph is that paragraph.
right,
It's called out because it's being added and it's in bold.
yeah, but this still reads wherever reasonable. I just can't live with that.
Well, that's been there since the law was passed.
Yeah.
That we're not changing that.
I know.
I mean, we're not proposing to change it.
Well,
We can change it, but
Yeah, I think we can change it. See, it's too ambiguous. I think it should read, all structures will be shaded from view by vegetation and/or joint clusters to avoid adverse. I think this is much more positive. It's a very positive statement. They will. It's not up for debate. It's not up for the planning board to decide. The bylaw says this is what you will do. And that's what I think our intent is, to strengthen this bylaw to prevent these solar farms from bothering people or impacting their property.
Plus, you already stated in the second sentence, I don't know if I can chime in here, but
Yeah, no, you
you
can.
already say, subject to reasonable regulations concerning the bulk and height of the structures, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements. So you're basically stating it twice, right? So you're saying it has
Yeah.
to, they're subject to all reasonable regulations, and then down the bottom, you're saying whenever reasonable. So you're kind of covered, but
I agree with Tom that reasonable regulations
which
should
Tom?
not be there.
Yeah. In both places.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Patty.
I would talk to Vin.
Well, obviously.
These are the words that,
I mean, they may have
this
been
has been in there for 5 years.
They've been in there for 5 years, but they don't necessarily have to stay there. And I think this is a real, I just don't think I think we should strike these reasonable. These subject to reasonable regulations is, I think it's just asking for.
We just get rid of reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not reasonable, are you being unreasonable?
Subject to regulations concerning the bulk, height of structures, lot area, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then come down, it says, shall be architecturally compatible with each other. Then get rid of whenever reasonable, and then it would be structures should be shaded. I would put all structures.
All structures.
All structures should be shaded from view by vegetation and/or joined or clustered to avoid adverse visual impacts. There's no gray in there. Whereas with the whenever reasonable and above the reasonable regulations, that's a big gray area.
And we're saying to people, you can't do this. You have to shade these things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're saying there, and we're telling them it has to be shaded by at least 1.5 times the height, and they have to have these screens in place prior to the certificate to generate. So from the day this thing starts to operate, people and neighbors shouldn't be able to see it.
Correct.
Well, we've not debated that sentence.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying but that's this whole paragraph. That's what we're trying to get at. This wherever reasonable and reasonable regulations, it can be,
But that, you leave it in like that could be a huge gray area.
right.
And I also, the last sentence, the view from the street and abutting residences, I'd like to change that so that anywhere on your property, you cannot see these things.
The view from the street and abutting residences shall be screened.
You know, if somebody has a 2-story house with a room in the attic, it's gonna be nearly impossible to screen that.
Right.
If someone is on higher ground than the neighboring land, it's gonna be impossible.
Yeah, that works for me.
It works for you in the sense that it's prohibited?
Yes.
Well, I think that's unreasonable.
I don't think it is. Why should a solar farm go in on someone's property and destroy your property value and your enjoyment of your home, that you have to look at the solar farm all the time?
Well, someone could say that about the one on your barn. If that's their opinion, I look over and I see something on your
But a
roof. that
barn
isn't
is
a barn
different than
roof.
a solar
Well,
facility.
you're saying that. All I'm saying is, it's
Yeah.
very much in the eye of the beholder.
A solar farm is a commercial industrial power generating system. A barn is a structure. It's a completely different concept of what a barn is versus a industrial
You told me
complex.
your solar system was an industrial one.
It is, it's on my barn.
It's not a residential
It's on my
one, it's an
barn, but
industrial
it's on, well, first off, it's not that big, okay, but it's also on a
Okay.
barn. But one of these big systems, Tom, is a commercial industrial generating facility. And,
Well,
I mean, you
I
could make
think-
the argument that you shouldn't allow these things anywhere except in industrial parks. I mean, that would be more restrictive.
I'm just saying, if you don't have a way to be reasonable, then you've locked yourself in. There's no judgment required. And no judgments are absolutisms. They're just absolutes.
Right.
And I don't think that's the way that a community has to govern itself. I think a community is governed by elected officials that are capable of exercising good judgment, sometimes bad judgment, and that gets them unelected.
But it doesn't take that solar farm away from your back door.
Well,
This definitely.
by being
will take-
unreasonable, you also open yourself up to lawsuits. So don't think that being absolute is a solution to what you open this argument with.
I agree, Tom, it could be open to it, but it's not saying that the only time I think you would lose an argument like that anywhere or in court is if you wouldn't allow them anywhere. I agree with you, if you didn't allow them anywhere. But if you can put these things in a place like on Williamsville Road, that one we're looking at right now, that can't be seen by anyone. So that's not unreasonable that they can go in there. But if you have a $500,000 house, and then someone builds one of these things next to your house, and you have to look at it out of your bedroom window every morning, okay? Besides the fact that you don't want to look at an industrial complex next to your house, why don't you just build a 20,000 square foot metal building there? It's the same concept. You wouldn't allow that. Why would you allow something like this?
You can allow that. If it's a farm, he can do it. The farmer person can do it.
Right.
You could put
Yeah, maybe
any kind of a farm structure they want,
for
as
farming.
long as they as long as they obey the setbacks.
Right.
With no screening, nothing.
I know.
So
That's not right.
we're not consistent at all.
Well, I think if we don't change this, I don't want to leave this up to any planning board or anyone to make a decision about that.
In the future.
Well,
In the
those
future.
words have been in there for what, four solar systems now.
Right, and look what we have. We got one of them.
One of them
One of them
has been poorly executed.
One of them is poorly executed. The one down the street from that on Williamsville Road, you can still see it from the road, and it's not. To me, is not. I mean, you drive by it, you don't necessarily notice it, but if I lived on that street and I walked by it, I would certainly see it.
Well, I have a picture of that.
Huh? You can attest to that, yeah.
You can see the one on
This one?
68.
You can barely see on 68.
That's the one on Williamsville Road. That's a view from Williamsville Road, traveling west, up their driveway.
Do Do you think that Carol Fielding's having such a hard time selling that house because she's between those two?
I don't know.
Just something to, I think
That doesn't
about when I go
depict, yeah, I
by.
can see that solar field driving down the road. That's,
I couldn't. And I took a picture of it.
Patty drives by every day, so,
Twice.
twice a day.
At least.
You can see the solar field?
Oh, yeah.
Which one?
The lower one, right? I can't see the one that has the snow fence that's up.
That's the one, that's the 95, that's that one.
Okay.
There's
It's the
95,
one I think is at LeBlanc, right next to Sevasta's, right?
Yeah.
there's 95, and there's 91.
I think it's 91, that's the really bad one.
Yeah, 91 is across from Scott, forgive me, Scott
LeBlanc.
LeBlanc's house.
Well, let's look at it this way, Tom. That reasonable regulation passed muster with that one.
No, it didn't. No, it
Yeah, it
didn't.
did.
I think his plans have not been executed.
Those though, I've looked at the plans, those planters are exactly like the plans. Those
I don't
planters.
agree with you.
Have you looked at it?
Yeah,
Plans?
I think he's not in compliance with our intent.
But he's in compliance, well, he shows those plantings on that field. I mean, they all died. That's a whole different issue. But those things will never block that solar field.
That's right. That's why he's not in to the intent.
Yeah, but this, taking those words out of there, Tom, will, that wouldn't happen if that was in here. If you took that reasonable out. Because maybe the board at that time thought that was reasonable. You know, maybe the board who approved that at the time and put it in and said, well, that's reasonable. This is saying, we're taking taking this out of the board's decision. We're saying, and that quite honestly, Lisa Durant is saying that should not be an option. The option to have someone's house look at these solar panels should not be an option. It absolutely should be cast in this zone, in this bylaw, that's not an option for people. It's not up to the planning board to decide whether it's reasonable that Lisa Durant is gonna look at these solar panels. I don't think any board has the authority or should have the authority to make it reasonable to destroy another person's property under any circumstances for any reason. And I feel pretty strongly about that. And I don't think we should allow these solar panels, this particular issue, to be ambiguous or made the decision of 5 people. I just don't think it should be. It should be set in the law that they cannot do that. You can stand up and applaud.
No, I just disagree.
Yeah.
I think every week.
We're getting together again in 2 weeks, correct?
Every week, we come in there and exercise our judgment.
Right.
And if we have no judgment, they can replace us with a series of switches. We have to exercise our judgment, and it's for the good of the community. You use extreme words like destroy.
Well, I would feel that way. You wouldn't feel that way?
Well, I think destroy is make valueless or do something rather dramatic. I don't think we're talking about destroying things.
I do. Scott LeBlanc was on this board, and he sat there and he said, every morning I have to look at this damn thing, and it destroys my peace of mind and my property in my house.
And we're going to work on it.
I don't see how we're gonna work on it. We've never enforced any of these bylaws or changes anyways.
That's a whole nother world.
I know it is.
Enforcement's another world.
But that's where we are. That's exactly right. Enforcement's a whole nother world, and this town does not do enforcement. So leaving this up to a board to decide to impair someone's view from their house, enjoyment of their house, if you don't like the word destroy, I don't think it should be left to any board to do that. What do you think?
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't. But I think that maybe we should get Vinnie's input into this. we can put this on the back burner.
Yeah, we don't have to push this one forward.
There's Vinnie and Craig?
Craig.
Yes, Craig,
Get
if
their
snow
input.
stops, we'll see him.
Yeah, if and when.
It doesn't sound like it's stopping right away.
Right.
Vinnie may be sitting there right now saying, yeah, I agree, I disagree, and let's. but
I mean,
think-
Craig hasn't even, I don't know if he's even seen these or not, so.
No, I don't believe he has, so why don't we wait?
Didn't Vin
Put this on the
distribute it?
back burner.
I don't know if he did. He sent it,
I must have just got it in the mail. I can send a copy to Craig
yeah.
tomorrow, email, and that way at least he'll.
But that's how we disagree on that, that's all.
That's okay.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I just don't, I guess the basic point is, I want something written in here to take these out. So it's not up to the planning board to decide whether they're gonna allow this or not allow this.
Yeah, on the other hand, I don't want someone up, repairing his roof or putting an antenna on his chimney and says, oh, I can see it. The absolutism is a difficult thing for me to do.
Yeah,
It's just
we just have to disagree.
not, I think you have to be fair, you have to be reasonable. These words are okay with me. I try to be. Absolutism is very difficult.
But we already have a case where these words caused something to happen that was not acceptable to people.
That's correct, but we have the authority to go back and say, gentlemen, you have not fulfilled the requirement. The spirit of the permit, we gave you a special permit, you did not do what we asked.
And
We can order with a cease and desist on that.
we
Well, I
can,
don't
we
know
can,
what
we
you
can
do,
do
but we
all
call
those,
them in and talk to 'em.
we can do all those things you want, but this town, historically, in the last, 35 years I've lived here, has never enforced any of these things.
Yeah, but that's not a good argument. You don't put forth proposals or put forth conditions and requirements and then say to yourself, oh, but they're meaningless because we're not going to enforce them. You have to put them forth and then you work on enforcement.
Well, I've not seen any enforcement happen in this town in 35 years.
Well,
So-
that's unfortunate, but that isn't a reason not to put forth good conditions.
I think it is. I think it's an absolute condition not to do
Well,
it.
then you'd never approve anything.
I'm not gonna even respond to that.
I mean, if you're not going to enforce anything, you wouldn't approve anything.
Well, there's certain things that could be approved. But something as important as this, which is destroying someone's property, values, and their peace of mind and living in their house, I don't think that should be left up to the decision of 5 people. There's certain things that you can have flexibility on, but there's certain things that have to be absolute. And I think this bylaw has to reflect that. These systems should absolutely not impact someone else's property.
But you wouldn't say the same thing about a farmer.
We don't have any choice about that. This is something we have a choice on. We have the right to farm bylaw. The people of the town voted for that. Okay? That's what the people have said in the town. They're okay with that. This is something we do have control over. And
Okay.
I do think a big barn, they say Country Hen is a good example. I mean, they put those barns up, they could put them there by right. Some people don't like them. They voted for the town voted for the right to farm bylaw, so that's their right. This is something we can control.
All right, so what are we doing? We're going back to Vin and say, help?
No, we're just gonna put it off to our next, well, we can either vote for it now to change it and see where it goes, or I agree with Kendall. I think we should wait till our next meeting with Vin and Craig
I agree.
and get to there. I think that's what we should do.
I agree.
And these just apply to large scale ground mounted.
Right, nothing on small
Nothing
stuff, no. Okay, is that okay with you?
I agree.
Yeah, I think we-
I'd like to hear
If there's
the
disagreement,
chairman's
yeah,
thoughts on this.
if there's disagreement, and Craig's thoughts, yeah,
And we'll make a motion and vote. And
Right.
chips fall where they may. but-
yeah, okay. Okay, 20.4, certificate, the planning board may revoke the certificate to generate for cause after a public hearing. I guess that's not in there, right?
Anything bold is added.
Is added, okay.
Anything is text is the way it will read when added.
No solar facility may sell or distribute, generate power until all conditions of the issued permit and requirements of this bylaw are approved and certified at a meeting of the planning board, and the certificate to generate is issued and recorded in the Worcester County Registry of Deeds. The planning board may revoke the certificate to generate for cause after a public hearing. I think that's what we said, yeah.
This is a whole new paragraph, so the ad is the way it will read.
Okay. The owner of a solar installation shall provide a report to the planning board in January of each calendar year with the following information: total amount of electricity generated, major maintenance performed, planned or actual, major system modifications or change of ownership. That was, we did that for,
Yeah, this was your original wording, and we,
Yeah.
I think, between myself and
Yeah.
Vin, mostly Vin, it's been cleaned up.
right.
So the owner of just, and I know that the answer is yes, but I just want to be 100% sure. The owner of the solar installation is not me because I put it on my property. It's owned by the people that built it?
That's correct.
Right.
Okay.
But you can, if the people that built it fail to respond, you go to the landowner.
Correct.
Right. And the other reason why I wanted to wait until we came back with Vin and Craig as well, because I've told Vin this, I think I've told you, I wanted to add something else on here. To not allow solar systems on prime agricultural soils in town. So,
Are there any?
there's a lot of it, there's a lot of it, actually. Well, not that much.
Don't allow them to go where?
On prime agricultural soils. Prime agricultural soils is a designation by the U.S. Geological Service that says these soils have the perfect conditions for growing food.
I agree with that 100%.
Right,
Yeah.
so they shouldn't be going on areas that have,
It can be a farming.
can be a farm, right? Now, just for an example, my farm that you see from 68 is prime agricultural soils. Kathy Hing, Ladybug Farm, that's prime soils, so places like that. So places that's either farmed or, there's a huge area of prime agricultural soils off of Pitcherville Road, believe it or not, it's all forested.
How are you determining these things?
There's a map, there's a GIS map produced by the state that indicates where prime agricultural soils are.
Excellent.
So it's pretty easy to determine where they are, just go onto the map, just can't be, you can't put them on the prime agricultural soils. It's important that we preserve any areas that have,
Well, now, wait a minute. If you're saying preserve,
well, not build on them, I'm talking about.
yeah, but what about putting a solar system in destroys the soils?
It takes, what does, it takes them
It
out
takes it
of,
out of the inventory.
it takes it out of the protection, it takes them out of the possibility of production
For 20 years.
for 20 years.
Until you decommission it, tear them out, and
Yeah.
then it's back to production.
But can you go 20 years without eating?
No, I'm only going, I'm talking about the use of the word preserve.
Oh,
In other words, they're not destroying the prime agricultural
No, they're
soil.
not.
They're putting it to use,
Mhm.
productive use, perhaps as productive as farming, or even more productive than farming. And then you can return it to farming after 20 years.
Right.
So the earth and agriculture, these are long-term things. I don't know why 20 years of non-growing something in what wasn't growing anything to begin with is a big detriment. If the benefits outweigh the drawbacks, I think it could be referred to as a winner, as opposed to something that, as you said, destroys the soil. It doesn't destroy the soil.
It doesn't destroy, well.
It puts the land to use.
Well,
Did they remove the topsoil
No,
when they
no,
put it?
No,
Well, they
they
moved
put
the
in a
topsoil.
screw.
Well, not, they pull the stumps and they regrade the,
Well, you have to pull the scrumps to plant corn. So.
yeah. No, I know, but I'm just saying, the process is they cut the trees down, pull the stumps, bulldoze, change
Yep.
the, and then they plant grass, right?
Well, I'm not certain of all the steps, but
Yeah.
my point is, land that isn't being, if it was today a hyper productive crop growing land and you took it out of crop growing and you put a solar system on it, that's one thing. If it is fallow land and it's not been farmed in 150 years and we put it to a higher and better use than the land is today, then I think that's a winner.
I don't think this is a higher and better use for anything, so we're just arguing from a different point of view.
You have one on your barn.
It's on my barn. And I think it's great on structures. I think solar should be in barns, I think it should be in big parking lots. It should not be, I don't believe in ground-mounted systems, I think they're counterproductive to what they actually do. They're industrial complexes that you're putting on.
Well, I think that goes against a lot of literature.
Well, that's how we feel about it.
Right.
I just don't like ground-mounted, these big-mounted systems. A lot of different reasons, but.
Do you know how many big hay fields we've lost to solar? Or have you heard people talking about?
You mean in Hubbardston?
I don't think any.
No.
Oh, no, those ones on Pitcherville were heavy fields.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute, Pitcherville was a sand.
Not Pitcherville,
No, not Pitcherville.
Williamsville Road. Those were farm fields.
No, I don't agree with you. The one across the street from Craig's house was a woods. He had to go in and stump it.
I think it was a lot of fields up there. I remember
I
buying
don't think
hay
so.
off the fields up there from someone.
I think it was
I
wooded,
don't
they
know.
cut it down, they had a guy come in there, in fact, he inappropriately cut in
I know,
the
but
but
there
some
was-
of the stuff was inappropriately.
Yeah, I know, but some of the fields were up there. Some of the area did. I don't really remember up there, but
I recall
I know I
being
bought
wooded.
hay up there, off of somewhere.
Because Tatton
on
used to
that.
hay something up
Yeah,
there.
I bought it from Dave
Williamsville.
Tatton, yeah.
And Jimmy Nygaard used to come in and
Yeah.
hay
It
It
something
wasn't,
up there.
it wasn't the one across from the Lights House. I'm certain that it was wooded.
Could have been the other one then. I remember.
I was
just
just
remember
curious.
going up there. I don't think there's any more. Well, Pitcherville obviously wasn't. That was just a dumpy pit.
Gardner Road was wooded.
Wooded, yeah. So, anyway, we'll put that on the agenda for the next
Good.
week. So, my recommendation is add built. I'll bring a map of the prime agricultural soils to the next meeting.
Well, yeah, but if
Yeah, I'd like
if
to
they're
see
under
that.
woods and not productive, I mean, it's prime agricultural land or prime agricultural land being used as prime agricultural land.
Yeah, well,
There's two different things there.
I realize that, but if you have prime agricultural land and you want to start a farm and it has a solar farm on it, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen in the future like that.
That's why you decommission it.
Okay, that's it, we got it.
Yep.
What are you guys talking about for scenic roads? Do you need me to bring any other information? I
I
was
don't
starting
have any of that, do you?
to,
I have nothing on scenic roads except the word from Vin that we have to look at that
we're almost
for the
done.
purposes of making a bylaw.
Okay, that sounded like it's getting rid of.
Yeah,
Vin and I have kind of been pulling together state stuff about scenic roads, and again, we were gonna incorporate it into that, permitting book that we were talking about, just a chapter, because everyone comes in and they wanna know why they have to do all this stuff for scenic roads, so I figured we'd put a little bit in there about what the scenic roads are, what the state law is regarding scenic roads, and then how we react to that, in the
I
town
think we have to
and then-
adopt some kind of a bylaw
Yeah,
to package that somehow.
right, and that's kind of what Vin and I have been working on, just pulling the stuff together. I'm sure he wants to rewrite everything.
The other thing he mentioned was noise.
yeah.
It used to be under the venue of the Board of Health, I believe, and now it's under no one's venue.
Yeah, Board of Health is
And
not holding it
he's
anymore.
suggesting that we discuss a bylaw and propose one.
I don't know how you would do that.
Well, there's state laws.
There's a
there's
definition.
town
I guess, how do you
nuisance
define
laws.
noise, I guess?
And again, it's enforcement, who's gonna enforce that? I mean, we get calls about, remember, it was the Christmas tree farm up on Hale Road, I think that started cutting really early in the morning, and people all the way down to Joyce's house could hear it. The Greens could hear it, but a lot of people were calling me, asking what was going on. And, turns out it was them, the Christmas tree place, and they put in a forestry plan and everything and let everybody know they were gonna start cutting, but I'm thinking, what's gonna happen when they start cutting at 147 Williamsville? That's gonna get a lot of calls, too.
Well, the state's gonna start cutting, I think. probably before the solar, right?
I assume so. I
And
don't
the
know.
They start
DCR is,
early, I guess.
I know, they've
They
already
start
said,
like
they've issued
7
the contract, so they have, after they issue the contract, they have 2 years to cut it, so.
but the contract must say hours of operation.
I don't,
I would hope.
I think so. I think it's 7 o'clock.
But once again, I won't accept an inability or an unwillingness to enforce things as a reason not to put in appropriate conditions.
But like I said, now's the time to do it because Larry is supposedly retiring officially and we're getting a new building inspector. So I say any changes you're gonna make, I mean, if you want to start talking about enforcement, I don't know if it's whose realm
Well,
it's
it's not
gonna
the
be,
person.
but
It's not the person, it's the
role of
it's it's the job description, it's not the person.
Right, but I'm saying maybe now is the time to add to that job description if that's what it needs to
Well,
be. Because I always thought Larry was the enforcement.
Well, that Larry is the enforcement person in the town for the zoning. It says it's very clear in the zoning and the general bylaws, right? But the planning board has I think is the one that enforces the zoning bylaws, so we can, or we should, I think, be enforcing the zoning bylaws and then giving Larry the job of enforcing it. So we should say X property is in violation of the zoning bylaw. Larry, go out and enforce it. So Larry's like the police.
Right.
I think he even has a badge, doesn't he?
I don't know, I've never seen
Yeah,
it,
I think
but
he has a badge. He's like the police and we're like the ones enforcing the rules. So
Right.
it's like the district attorney's office. The district attorney says, this person's broke the law, go arrest them or do whatever. So the planning board is the one responsible for looking at. I'm not saying we should be driving around town looking for violations, but if someone comes in with a complaint, we should investigate the complaint. If there's a problem, recommend it for enforcement.
So who'd enforce something like noise? Would that be?
That's something.
Well, the police do now in the sense that I believe there's, what do they call it, disturbing the peace? You know, I think there's hours and regulations around that. This would be similar to that. I don't know if the actual police would do it or if the conditions of the, in fact, I think you did it once. You went down to Gardner Road and you said, hey, you guys can't work on a weekend or Sundays or Saturdays or something. Remember that? Didn't you put a cease and desist on the Gardner Road solars?
No, I never did that.
Oh.
They were given a cease and desist, and I went down there and they were still working, and I pointed out to them that they had a cease and desist order.
You weren't.
And they said, you're in violation, and they decided to stop. Basically.
That's not normally our role, but.
You need to.
But,
No, my role was, we had given them a cease and desist, and they didn't comply, and I went and spoke to the general super and says, you do have a cease and desist. You're in violation of the cease and desist. And he said, yeah, you're right, and shut it down. So. But that was on Sunday.
I forget exactly
Yeah.
the issue, but my
Yeah.
point is there are ways to accomplish enforcement.
I think what we need,
So-
I think we just need to let everybody know what to do. The problem is people call me and I don't know about noise enforcement here because we have nothing.
I mean, there must be a way to measure, I know there's a way of measuring noise, but
Right.
the DEP definition of noise is 5 decibels above the ambient decibel level of the area. It's
I
considered
think it's
noise.
measured at the property line.
Right. So whatever the ambient decibel level is, anything 5 decibels above that, and I don't even know what decibel sounds like.
Decibel is a exponential power of sound. Every
Yeah.
decibel is a factor of 10, I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure online
Sound
you can
intensity.
see.
So if it's 5 over 5, that'd be 5 times louder than it would normally be.
I think it would be, well, I better reserve myself.
Yeah, I
It's been a long time since I worked with
I mean, I
DEP.
worked with that when we were
It's a
fighting.
log scale.
Yeah. So I don't know how.
It's not linear.
You can go online, you can see a chart, like a heavy metal concert is here, and a dog barking is here, but it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting to see where things come in.
One of the things on this dog license that we're looking at, one of the issues is, I started looking up what,
Well, that's not on our agenda.
no, I mean, but it has to do with noise, is what's the definition of a nuisance of a dog barking? And the definition that they have written out is a dog barking, more than one dog barking continuously, or more than 20 minutes in a single hour, recorded by, I'll bring it in when we do that. He's very specific.
Now, are we gonna have trouble with those words?
Well, it's not, I'm just kind of trying to remember it from, trying to remember it, but I know it's 20 minutes, so it's a dog barking for 20 minutes, or more than one dog barking for 20 minutes in an hour, and it's up to the responsibility of the person making the complaint to prove it.
Oh, so you have to tape it.
Well, everybody's got tape recorders
Yeah.
now.
Well, I know, but I just saw this one regulation, I went, well, okay, because I'm saying, how do you define a dog barking as being a nuisance?
And if the dog takes a break for 2 minutes within that 20 minutes, is that?
No, it's
eight
in
goals?
20, if he barks continuously for 20 minutes in an hour.
That's
And what's
unreasonable.
continuous? Is it
Right.
Roof, or is it roof? So, I don't know, it's,
Imagine writing that.
I don't know how you would define it, it's very,